some of the viewers may not really know even what the subconscious is, because they may have just heard the subconscious is this obscure part of our consciousness that we better don't really get in touch with. It feels overwhelming. So I just want to briefly mention that the subconscious is really a very, very powerful part of our mind, a very, very powerful part of our daily lives, because it does really take care of our memories. It takes care of our physical body. You know, we don't really consciously have control of our physical body. We have maybe the desire to walk, and we say, okay, now I'm going to walk from here to the door, but all these muscle contractions and flexions and everything that happens while you're walking cannot be controlled consciously. This is happening too fast, and it would be too overwhelming to really think it through. And this is what the subconscious does for you. Same with breathing and the digestive system. The subconscious is also in control of your patterns. You know, this driving to work, the washing your hair. You're already at work. You're already somewhere else. So you're just still half asleep in bed while you're taking a shower or while you're sitting in the car. So who is driving? Who is actually
exactly.
washing your hair? And so that's the fascinating part about the subconscious. The subconscious really has two major interests for us. It's the major prime directives. One is to keep us safe, and the other one is to make us happy. And so when you really understand that the subconscious actually wants to either help you to make your life more enjoyable or just to help you survive, then you can also see emotions like fear and anxiety that are also created, like all other emotions by the subconscious, do have a purpose. And often when people have fear and anxiety, they don't really feel there is really a purpose. Fear and anxiety is seen as disorder, as flaws, as weaknesses. Oh, this is just sabotaging me, holding me back. We get actually mad when we are anxious or insecure and wondering what's wrong with us. And we are not asking the question, why do we create it? What's actually the deeper purpose? What does the subconscious, that really wise part of us, this faithful ally that has been with us from the first moment of our existence, why does the subconscious create these emotions, and what does it actually intend for us? And that's the question that we need to start this healing journey with. This is really the first question. What is actually the purpose? What's the intention behind it? But often we have to understand the subconscious actually is acting in ways that may be still based on the assumptions of the past. In other words, it's not necessarily seeing clearly that you're a grown-up, that you have a lot of experience and wisdom, that life is actually much safer, that you are self-reliant. If your subconscious or a part of your subconscious is still trapped in experiences and beliefs of the past, it will still consider you as weak. It will still consider you as maybe helpless or as somebody who is really endangered. And so one of the important parts of this work, and the book actually helps people with that, is to make you and your subconscious current. That means you need to get a clean slate on a subconscious level so that you, when there are situations that can trigger anxiety, not feeling completely overwhelmed, you're not falling into past patterns, but you're able to address the situations appropriately. And then you can ask yourself, okay, in this moment, what is actually the meaning of the subconscious? As you may still be stuck in the past, and you may still repeat patterns that are actually not serving you anymore, that information on what's the purpose needs to be looked at also under the perspective of what happened in the past that made me still, for example, believe that I'm not safe or that I'm not good enough. And I'm really happy to talk about the three subconscious root causes of fear and anxiety, because I think that's such an important concept. let's say there is a client I worked with who lives in Scandinavia, and originally he is from South America, and his struggles that led him to do this work were actually simply a fear of flying. He was afraid of entering into a plane and visiting his family in South America, and so for years and years and years he was stuck in the same place, and he couldn't explain, why am I anxious? Now, when we talked the first time, he also told me, well, he's not really feeling so great about his job, and he doesn't really feel that great about his physical health because he had some severe digestive systems. It turns out he had some allergies to any and all fruit. He hadn't eaten fruit in 10 or 15 years because every time he ate fruit, he had a lot of bloating and pain abdominally, and so he avoided it, which limited his, obviously, his nutrition quite a bit. And so he was constantly battling basically with just going from day to day through life without finding a lot of joy. And that's what I often see with people, that they have a certain symptom that causes them to actually have so much pain that they're willing to say, you know what, I need to work on this. And rather than focusing only on that symptom, I like to see the symptom as a branch of a bigger picture, a branch of a tree, and like to go down all the way to the roots. What is actually causing this symptom, or the series of symptoms that in this case this client was dealing with? We were looking for the 3 root causes of fear and anxiety. In his case, the 3 root causes on a subconscious level are this emotional baggage. What that means is basically the emotions that we haven't really been able to deal with, the emotions that are still somewhat stuck in our subconscious, often also transferred into our cellular memory, into our body. And, you know, we all know this. We don't really dare to show our anxiety. We feel we have to keep it together. If we would show how anxious or insecure we are, other people would think less of us. So what we do is we just take the emotions and shove them under the rug and basically try to ignore them. And the threshold to feel anxiety again, for example, just gets lower and lower and lower. In other words, the smallest things can trigger you into a panic attack, which is like this pressure cooker that you feel like is inside of your subconscious, and just any additional pressure makes that pressure cooker explode. So that's where one of the root causes is, and you can see this as more the fuel of the problem. That gives the problem, the fear and anxiety problem, basically the energy to still be a part of your life. We are not just one whole being that's always the same, and we know that. You know, you go to work, you take on a different role. You have children, you take on a different role. You go home to your family, and all of a sudden you revert back to being the child. 2 days, you know, with your folks, you are back in old patterns and take down that role that you have been so familiar with. So there are different aspects of us, of the subconscious, that are coming up at different times. And usually these aspects work pretty well together. It's like a really harmonious interplay of these different parts on a subconscious level. But then there is a part that is anxious. If you are dealing with anxiety, you have a part of you that is either insecure or feels very critical towards you, or is just very shy and avoids anything. And then there is a counterpart. And the counterpart is the part that wants to move forward, that wants to take a risk, that wants to put yourself out there and try something new. And you may notice sometimes it's like a tug of war, back and forth, back and forth. You go one step forward and then something pulls you back, and you just feel stuck because of that tremendous amount of energy that you're expending by fighting and struggling with yourself. And that's another really important root cause of fear and anxiety that needs to be addressed. And that's something that we also did with this client. So his emotional baggage was originally from his upbringing. When he grew up in a countryside little village, which was barely making enough to survive. There was just some rural things they could do, some vegetables and some animals they basically lived from. The mother at some point said, I'm going to take the kids, leave the husband, and go to the big city. So this was like the first loss that he had in his life very early on, and hadn't seen his father for years and years afterwards. Then his mother found out that she couldn't really make it in the city, so she went to her sister in the US, left the son behind, and said, I'm going to pick you up in a few years. So there was a second big loss he had early on. And from that on, most of his childhood, he lived with some relatives, was kind of, basically pushed around a little bit, and never felt very much at home. And even when he went then to the US and lived with his mom, he felt like an outsider. And so there was a lot of just uneasiness and anxiety and not being able to really feel safe that was imprinting on him and going on with him, but he didn't have any outlet. He couldn't really tell anybody because he didn't really feel trusting towards anybody. His mother wasn't around, his father wasn't around, so he stuffed it inside, and he learned that a part of him felt that he had to be strong. He had to have the demeanor of everything is fine, that's the way to survive. But at the same time, there was another side of him that said, you're going to just have to hide out and hold on to wherever you are. Don't ever leave your family. Don't ever leave that what's familiar, because you know how much pain that actually cost you. So when he had his own family, and when he was living in Scandinavia, he was, of course, afraid that if he's traveling, he has to endure loss again, because he's leaving his family behind. He's traveling somewhere, and who knows what's going to happen. So a part of his subconscious was reminded of this emotional upheaval that he had, all this pain from the past, and wanted to hold him back. And every time he wanted to plan a trip, he couldn't. It stopped him. So really working with both aspects, the resolving of these emotional patterns of this pain and the anxiety and the fear of being left behind, the fear of loss, and then also integrating this part of the subconscious that still was watching over him and telling him, you have to hold on to those that you love. You cannot abandon them, and you cannot also be abandoned. We have to make sure that this doesn't happen. Remember how much pain that was. After that integration, he felt so much better. And then we were ready to address the third root cause, which is the limiting core beliefs.